Sisters of St. Martha were formally established as a religious organization in 1900 after responding to a call from the Bishop of Antigonish. Within a few years of the founding, the Sisters responded to the call to help in hospitals in Western Canada as well as teaching in rural schools. Bishop Kidd was in Calgary and knew that the Lethbridge Hospital needed help, and so two sisters came to Lethbridge. That was the beginning of a long period of service to the Lethbridge community.
Volunteer Lethbridge's community it's seeking out people who make a difference in our community. They're caring individuals, they serve the community in so many different ways, and today we are recognizing 3 of those individuals who are sisters from St. Martha Centre, and I'd like to introduce them to you. We have Josephine here, we have Sister Teresa, Sister Josephine, and Sister Jo, and I'm so pleased to be here with you because these doors of St. Martha Centre are closing. Is that correct?
Not totally. We are leaving, but Martha Retreat Centre will stay open.
And where are you leaving to?
We're going back to Nova Scotia, Antigonish, Nova Scotia, where our headquarters are, our mother house, and because we're getting a little elderly to be carrying on the retreat center here, and a group of lay people will continue on with the spirit of the Marthas.
When you first came here, I was delighting in your stories of when you entered into the order, and Sister Teresa, tell us about how you started your journey.
Well, I felt that I was called to something and I didn't know what, but I knew sisters who taught me in grade 11 and 12, but I thought it was, religious life I was called to. And I didn't feel the call, and the same with what we called normal college when I stayed with some sisters. But it was through my pastor when I was teaching in my village where I come from, who mentioned the Marthas to me. And so it was the simplicity with which he told me about them. Do I tell them about the pots and pans?
Absolutely.
But anyway, he had told me when I said I didn't know them, and he said, well, the sisters are in Inverness, and every July 1st we had our picnic, and he said, did you ever think of where we get our pots and pans? And I said, no. He said, the Marthas give us the pots and pans for this picnic. And I was so impressed with their simplicity. I thought, they're the ones for me.
So it was an act of giving that led you. Sister Jo, you've got a story of entering into this new passage in life for yourself.
Well, it's interesting. It's a little bit the same in the sense it was through my pastor. I had no plans to enter at all. And one day he just simply said to me, I just took Mike, who was a friend of mine, to the seminary. I think you should join the sisters. I said, I'm not really interested, and I hadn't been thinking about it. So, end of story. He said, oh, okay. And he just continued on his way. Anyway, I think that kind of stirred the spirit probably in me, and for the whole year it was always kind of, I guess in a sense, nattering at me until I finally, I'd say a good year later, decided I need to pursue this.
How old were you at the time?
19, just turned 19.
Is that the given age that you have to be 18 or 19?
No, not necessarily. A lot of sisters were younger than that. I think we had one that was 15, but 16, 17, I think, at the time for most of them. Yes, and then we had some older ones too.
So when it was 1929 that you and I were speaking about this, Sister Josephine, and we're talking about 1929 was when the first sisters arrived here in Lethbridge. To what?
I'll backtrack a bit in that our sisters were working at St. Augustine's Seminary in Scarborough, Ontario from 1913. So eventually, many of the students who went through there were stationed all across Canada, and Bishop Kidd was bishop in Calgary at the time, and he knew our sisters, and he knew that there was a need for health care in Lethbridge. And there was a small hospital here in Lethbridge called the Van Haarlem, and they needed some help, and so Bishop Kidd asked our sisters if they could come to Lethbridge, and 2 sisters did come to the Van Haarlem, and then the bishop asked them to expand the hospital because the health needs were growing. And so our sisters from back east supported the sisters here with personnel and finances, and they built St. Michael's Hospital, which opened in 1931.
And wasn't that a big step forward, you know, as we look back on that?
It was.
1931. Now, medicine has changed a great deal through the years. Nursing has changed a great deal. What do you recall about that particular era?
Well, it was just before the Depression, and the members of the board were businessmen from the city, and none of them had any idea that this depression was coming. And Mother Stanislaus, who was here during that time, used to say the only thing to do was to go, like the Israelites of old, down to Old Man River and weep because of the, you know, the terrible
Circumstances.
yeah.
Yes. The hospital played such a crucial role, but you know, behind the scenes, there were people that were working to raise money, to certainly serve, as you certainly know well. And I think of the just the enormous task that would be to build that hospital and then build wings onto that hospital as well. Do you want to comment on that?
When you started, I was thinking of at the time when they were really in dire straits, and how the sisters had told one man to go out and see if you can collect money from those that were owing. And when he came back at the end of the day, he said, "Sister," he said, "no one could pay, but my car is full of produce and chickens." Yeah, and yeah, they seemed to. That's how they paid the bills, how they were able to manage, and you know, I think God's providence was with them. They moved forward and carried on, and they were still able to accomplish a lot of things, and like you said, build a wing later on.
Has the world changed in terms of, are people going, retreating from the churches, or the entering into the sisterhood as you have? Are things changing?
I would say yes, but not negatively. Things are different. People still have a spirituality. The young people are, like, we need young people to replace us, which we don't have. But that's not saying that the young people are not generous. And they do many things to share their lives with the poor in other countries and whatever. But they're not coming to live as we lived. So whatever God has in store, we believe that something good will come out of this, and that their way of participating in their spiritual life will be different in the future. It's different already, but we don't have answers. So like, we continue to pray for replacement women, but if that's not to be, that's what God has in store. And life will be some other form in the future.
But it's a life of serving, isn't it? And helping, and having what? What are the qualities that one needs? Compassion, I guess, would be one of those things.
Yeah, and a willingness to see my neighbor, what my neighbor needs, and to be called on it at any time. I think it was so, I always think of this, just so unique that when our sisters came, and other places, people were not equipped to be nurses or to be work in labs and do x-ray, but our sisters were. But it was the same in the schools. But now you have many, many lay people who are well equipped to do that. And it seems to be what people really seek is prayer and to have time for quiet. Just this past weekend, we had a retreat here, and they just come and they go right into the silence and the quiet.
And I think that's rare in our busy society. You're being honored, recognized through Volunteer Lethbridge. How does that feel, Sister Jo?
Well, after speaking about the St. Michael's Hospital, we really feel we live in their legacy already, because they've always been so grateful for our sisters. Like you almost didn't have to kind of establish a reputation here. You were already accepted and welcomed. So we always say, we've been honored since the beginning, and they've given everything. So I think we've just continued in the spirit of trying to give, trying to serve. So it's certainly, I think it's an honor for us, certainly, but I think it's due to all our sisters that have gone on, have been here before us.
The act of giving, the act of serving, the act of compassion, we talk a lot about that as well. Can you teach that, or do you stand up as being role models to that? I'm going to get Sister Teresa.
I think people, we have our associates, and when when a retreat is over, like even before our retreatants have left, our associates come in and make the beds. People, when they're called upon, they're very willing. If they're free, people are so busy, but that's one chore they love to do.
And often want to be asked as well. Yeah. All right, we're retiring. So where do retired sisters or nuns go? Back to Antigonish?
Well, we will somewhere in Nova Scotia. Our congregation is so small now that we only have convents in Antigonish and in Cape Breton. So the three of us will be either in Cape Breton or in Antigonish somewhere. And we say, sisters don't retire. As long as you can walk and talk, you have some little responsibility of, depending on your own abilities, to help others. And so if you're well, like if you dedicated your life, which other people have done too, you don't want to just sit and do nothing. So if you feel well, you want to be helping, and so our superiors will see that they keep us satisfied.
So it doesn't end. Would you change anything? If you had to do it all over again, would you change anything? Sister Jo?
Would I change anything? I can't think of anything right now. I've always been in very challenging or different situations. I think that's the gift of being with the sisters. You join the convent and you see the world. You really travel a lot. You're encouraged to get education. I'm not so sure I would have gone as far as I did. If I was on my own, I was dependent on moving myself in that direction. So I've been across Canada, have been enriched really wherever I've been, and been grateful for that. So, yeah.
Well, we're grateful for you three and the sisters who have come before, and we thank you for sharing these moments with us today, and it's such a privilege to be here and speaking with you. Thank you, and God bless you.
Thank you.
Thank you.